we may have a breakthrough that could avoid the debt ceiling crisis that we're expecting next week. There is a very complicated deal between Senate Democrat and Republican leadership to avoid the United States defaulting on its debt on or about December 15th for the first time in history. But I'm going to warn you, there are a lot of moving parts in this thing, so hold on. First, let me explain what's going on. If you've been following me, you know the U.S. Congress is responsible for passing legislation and then paying the bills that they incur. And one of the ways they've been paying those bills since the early 1900s is by raising or suspending the debt ceiling. The debt ceiling is not an authorization of any new spending. By raising or suspending the debt ceiling, Congress gives the Treasury Department the authority and the tools it needs to pay the bills that we have incurred over the course of several presidents. Now, to today's proposed deal. Senate leadership from both parties have suggested passing a new law that would allow a fast-track process to vote on a separate bill to raise the debt ceiling with just 51 votes, one time only. So this is where it gets complicated. If they can agree to this new deal, there would be two major votes with a lot of what-ifs in there. Vote number one would be this new law that would allow the debt ceiling legislation to pass the Senate with only 51 votes. Now keep in mind, this law would have to pass both the House and the Senate. But in the Senate, it needs 60 votes. That means all Democrats and independents plus 10 Republicans. So that can be a yes or a no. But if it's a yes, let's just say they say, yep, we'll do this deal. Then we move to vote two, where Democrats and independents by themselves would have to raise the debt ceiling by a specific dollar amount. And then the vice president would need to come in to be the 51st vote, because since the summer, Republican leadership has said the Republican Party has zero interest in getting involved in raising or suspending the debt ceiling, even though typically that legislation is passed on a bipartisan basis. So it's worth noting that at this point, the House is already starting to consider this law. I'll keep you posted. The president's mandate for federal contractors to be vaccinated by January 4th has now been temporarily put on pause nationwide. This is a result of a ruling from a federal district court judge in Georgia who issued a preliminary injunction today as this case continues to play out. That case was brought against the federal government by 7 states, including Alabama, Georgia, Idaho, Kansas, South Carolina, Utah, and West Virginia. Today's ruling expands on the ruling that I actually told you about in this video last week, where a different federal judge in Kentucky also issued a preliminary injunction to pause the very same federal contractor mandate, but only in 3 states. So today's ruling from the judge in Georgia expands that temporary pause to the whole country. The judge said he did that to avoid any confusion. Now, this is important for you to understand. None of this is over. And just because one vaccine mandate is either stopped or paused doesn't mean all of them are stopped or paused. They are all separate and at this point are continuing to move through the court system on their own paths. It's also worth noting the White House continues to say that it will vigorously defend the president's vaccine mandates.